Hey guys, it's Alex from 7th Hour Films, and today I'm going to be giving you a review of Doctor Strange, the newest movie from Marvel Studios. So we're going to jump right into the story. So the story of Doctor Strange is, well, it's about Doctor Strange, obviously. But there's this doctor named Doctor Strange. He's this amazing neurosurgeon, and he gets into a car accident. This is very early on in the movie, actually. They don't waste any time going through his origin. And so he gets into a car accident and his hands are like really badly damaged, and his hands are like too shaky to operate anymore. So he goes through, tries to find any cure or any way to heal his hands so he can be a doctor again, and eventually he finds his way. I don't even know where. I don't know the exact location. Here you go. So he finds his way there to like this temple where these mystical people, I guess, are. And this is where he learns magic and sorcery and the different like things about the universe that normal people just don't often see. And this leads into him trying to stop a bad guy played by Mads Mikkelsen, I think is how you say that name. And trying to stop him from unleashing this super demon, whatever, end of the world, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. And so yeah, this is sort of the situation he falls into. So that's the story. Now we're going to move on to the characters. Let's start off with Doctor Strange, who is played by Benedict Cumberbatch. Really solid character. And in the beginning he can be kind of a jerk, but it's okay. This sort of, makes him not be a jerk, is basically what happens to this story. And yeah, he's a really enjoyable character. Because when you have a movie like this where it's like, magic is real and you will learn magic, and it's like, the main character is generally the skeptic, and Doctor Strange is a skeptic, and that sort of plays into it. We're going to move on to other characters. I don't know why I looked down my list. I don't have the names of all the characters. In terms of the main characters, I'll go through really quick. There are the people at the temple or whatever, the training grounds. They're pretty solid. Like the librarian, I know Wong. I think he's pretty fun. He's kind of very serious and stuff, but and that playing off of Stephen Strange's, being a wisecracker, basically. It can lead to funny situations, and kind of this other guy that's helping training him is really good, and he's really entertaining. And then we have like the leader of them, which is the Ancient One. She was pretty interesting, I think. There's some things revealed about her that kind of like puts things into question, which was really interesting. The one thing about the Ancient One, and this is completely stupid, but the one thing that I kind of kept thinking, like in the back of my mind, was if you look at her, it's just this bald lady. If you were to put like a blue arrow on her head, she becomes an Avatar character, straight up. So that's stupid and beside the point. Let's talk about some villains. There's not much in the ways of villains. They're okay. Mads Mikkelsen is entertaining, and there's one point where he's just talking with Doctor Strange, and it's really interesting seeing like their points of views on things, on the situation that's happening. And then we have, and not to spoil too much, but there's like a super villain, and he's okay. It's kind of interesting how he's defeated. I'm not going to go too much into that here. So yeah, but the villains are interesting enough. A lot of people complain about Marvel villains. I honestly don't complain about Marvel villains because I find them to be alright. But yeah, in terms of villain, this guy was okay. So that was characters. We're going to move on to cinematography and special effects. I'm mostly going to be talking about the special effects because the special effects in this are insane. Because basically, someone put this really well. I don't remember who it was, but someone said about this movie, like, occasionally, like, there will be like a fight in New York, and basically what's happening is basically if you look at New York and you took like a kaleidoscope and then you started turning it while looking at New York, that's some of the fights that are in this movie, and it's beautiful. And earlier in the movie, to kind of convince Doctor Strange that of all this stuff beyond what he knows of the universe, basically like sends him through this like trip of seeing all this great stuff, and the effects are just amazing. And something I really liked about the effects is the spells, because it's very interesting. They're kind of like neon spells, if that makes any sense. It probably doesn't make too much sense, but like when they like conjure up spells, they'll just be like these, you know, bright orange or green lines, and then they use those to fight. And I'm probably not describing it well, but it was really interesting. So that is something I liked. So, and then cinematography, I guess I really didn't touch on. Cinematography was really good, and the sets were really good too. I should probably put that because this is all like a visual section of the review. So, music and sound. One thing I did notice was the theme, I guess. Doctor Strange's theme sounds a lot like the Star Trek theme, the newer ones. And like there will be occasional times where you like hear a couple notes being played and you're like, that sounds like it, but it'll drift off into something else, but still sounds similar to that. It's just an interesting thing I heard actually. And yeah, it's interesting because I think it's the same composer for Doctor Strange as the newer Star Trek movies, so that could just be it. But it was just something I noticed. It's okay. It was pretty good. So, other than that, music and sound was really good. Yeah, there's not too much to say about it because not a lot of it really stood out. So, yeah. We're going to move on to something I always like to do in my reviews is I tell you if there were jump scares or not. Because if you don't know, I hate jump scares, and I like to be warned if there are jump scares going in. I generally don't have those warnings, so I'm going to give you those warnings. No jump scares at all in this entire movie. It was amazing. So, good. Movie length. This is the movie length right here. It didn't feel long. In fact, it didn't feel short, but it was very fast-paced, and it was really interesting like that. So, in fact, once we got to the climax, I was like, oh, we're at the climax already. It's like, oh, and because it's interesting because when I got there, I was like, oh, are we to the climax already? That was kind of short. But then once I remembered back on everything that just happened in this movie, it was like, no, this makes sense that we're here yet. Or we're here now. So, movie length is pretty decent. There is, I stayed for the first after-credit scene. I don't know if there's a second. Here, if there is a second after-credit scene after all the credits, here is yes or no if there is. But there is a first after-credit scene after all the big fancy credits. That's the word I just lost. It's really interesting. I'm not gonna spoil it here, but it was really cool, and it actually makes me excited for future Marvel movies that are like coming out next year. But that's all I'm gonna say on that. And generally this is where I would get into spoilers, but there's not really much to talk about in the ways of spoilers. If only that, and I'm not really going to go into too much spoilers here, but the way that they quote-unquote beat the villain, I thought was really interesting. And you'll see it's not a traditional way of beating the big bad guy. So yeah, I thought it was really clever, and you're just going to have to go see the movie for yourself, because that is going to be the end of my review, except we of course need to do a final verdict. Alright, so overall, Doctor Strange, it was really good, really solid. It was really good and funny, which obviously Marvel knows how to do at this point. What is this, like the 14th Marvel movie or something at this point? So yeah, it was really good, really funny. Final verdict for this, I'm going to put it at an A. Just straight A, not A+, because while it was really good, it's not quite to that level, but hey, an A is still an A. That's pretty good. That's up in like the 90 percentile for me. So yeah, that's pretty much that. Yeah, that's pretty much the end of this review. There's links in the description to social media and all that good stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm Alex from 7th Hour Films, and I'll see you guys later.